Hello everyone, welcome to C programming. Now why should I learn C programming? Now C is a very basic language that the machine can speak. Compared to all the other languages, C language is very primary and it also helps you understand how a machine handles the data, stores it and evaluates it. It also has pointers which are basic referential variables which helps you access the memory directly so that it gives you a more clear picture of how the data is being stored and manipulated. Now let's start with installing the C compiler first. Now C language has got different types of compilers. The most primitive compiler that we have ever used is called Turbo C compiler, the blue screen window which you could have seen in your school days. Now most of the online compilers as well as the competitive platforms like HackerRank or HackerEarth, everyone is using GCC version of the C compiler. Most of them are using the 5th version of GCC compiler. And I personally recommend we use yet another GCC compiler to begin the learning process. So in order to download the compiler, in your Google Chrome browser, I suggest you search for TDM GCC, where you can find the very first link from the source code, which says TDM GCC compiler. You can very well click on it. So TDM GCC compiler, here it is the download page you can see. And you can have the 64-bit version or the 32-bit version, depending upon your machine. You can download the compatible type of it, which is the GCC 10 version of it. So I'm using a Windows 11 environment, so I'm downloading a 64-bit version of GCC compiler, which would approximately be a size of 70 to 80 MB. So this is the compiler which we are going to use, and the editor part of it, where we're going to write our C programming language code. Okay, for that I'm going to use Visual Studio Code, so which is a very good editor to work with. I'm going to download the Visual Studio Code editor as well. I'm going to download it for Windows, hence I'm using a Windows environment. This will take a quick couple of minutes time to download. The Visual Studio Code editor has been downloaded successfully. Now to install it, just open up the installer file and it tells you the path where you want to install it. Just click on run. Just accept the license agreement. Click on next. And I personally suggest have all these options ticked, and also make sure the Visual Studio Code is added to your path. Then click on next. It will install the file for you. Just click on install. The installation is done. Since I have personally installed the VS Code already, I'm canceling the setup. The compiler is also downloaded and ready. Let's run the compiler. Let's install it first. So just click on create a new compiler and just install it. Click on the next, it will suggest the path. So this is the place where you want to install it, the installation directory. I'm installing it on the place of C folder. Under C, I'm having a custom folder called TDM GCC 64. So this is where I'm installing it. And since I have my installation already completed, I'm clicking on cancel. And you can very well see here under my C directory, you can have TDM GCC 64. So this is where the whole compiler is installed, built, and ready to run. In order to execute or not to run the compiler, I suggest you open up the command prompt, CMD command prompt, and in your command prompt, try this command called GCC. If this says GCC fatal error, no input files, then it shows that the GCC compiler is installed in your machine and ready to run. If you don't see this message, instead, if it says no internal command found, yeah, if it says no internal command found, something like this sort, GCC is not recognized as internal command, I suggest you go to this folder, TDM GCC. Under the directory, you can see a folder called bin, bin. When you open up this folder, here you can see a file called GCC. So this is the compiler which we are using now. And next to it, you can see a file called G++, which is basically a C++ compiler. So the compilers are present in this area. So I click on this folder path, C:/TDM GCC/64 bin, the folder path, copy this, click on the Windows button, search in the search bar, search for something called as environment. Okay, environment. You can see this option called edit the environment system variables. And in this folder, in this window, I'm clicking on environment variables. And here you can see two specific boxes, text boxes, where one is the system variables, the other one is your user variables. So system variables are nothing but similar to user variables, rather the variables which the system needs to run uninterruptedly. Okay, those are the variables which is stored under this heading called as system variables. So I personally recommend do not disturb any of the parts of it. Okay, go to user variables. Over there, you can see this variable called path. Okay, click on it, click on edit, and just paste, create a new variable and paste the path we have copied, TDM GCC. Since I have this path already, I'm not doing it now. C:/TDM GCC, just add that folder path to your path variable. Okay, click on OK. And if you don't find this path, if this path is not found, I suggest you click on new, keep the variable name as path, and paste the folder value here. And click on OK. So this will create a new path for you. Okay. If this path variable is not found, done. Click on OK. And click on OK to close this window. And open up a new command prompt. Close all existing command prompt and open a new one. And in the new command prompt, just run this command called GCC. Now this shows that your C compiler is ready installed. Yes, very good. Congrats. Let's talk about how to install the Visual Studio Code Editor. Just by click on Visual Studio Code Editor, it would be installed and ready to run. You can see this file called VS Code, the application, which is your Visual Studio Code Editor. Okay, so this is the default window which you can see always. And by default, this always starts up a PowerShell for you when you click on Terminal and New Terminal. This by default creates a PowerShell for you. This is a PowerShell, which is a Windows native PowerShell. Okay. So we will not be using a PowerShell to run the files. We better use a command prompt. So I suggest run this command called CMD. Okay. This should convert your PowerShell into a command prompt. You can see this text called CMD. So by which you can say your PowerShell has become a command prompt. Okay. So CLS is a command to clear screen. I'm just typing CLS to clear the whole screen. For some of you, the command prompt will be at the bottom, the terminal. Your terminal will be here. I prefer keeping to the right. So move panel to the right. I prefer having my terminal here. So let's talk about creating a first file, new file, and I'll save this file. I want to have a working directory first. So I'm going to create a working directory. I'm going to have open folder. So this is going to be my working directory. I've created the folder. So that is where my whole path is now. So I'm going to create my first file. I'm going to save this as hello.c. Because when you learn a new language, the first thing you learn in a language is to greet someone, right? Say. So in C language, you're going to say how you want to greet somebody. The first program in C is nothing but hello world program. Okay. So I'll also like to show what happens when we compile a program. So I'll open up this folder path. Okay, so I'm opening up this folder path. As you could see, this folder is at present completely empty. Okay, the folder path is completely empty. Okay, I've just stored this file called hello.c. That is the only file here, the hello.c program file. Okay, now I'm going to write the first program here, hash include standard input output.h. So under the main function, I'm saying printf hello world. Okay, I'm returning 0. So each and every statement I'll explain you once we talk about return statements and once we talk about preprocessed directives, because this hash represents preprocessed directive. So at that time I'll explain you what these lines are. Just concentrate on the third line alone. So the third line says printf. Printf is nothing but print something to the screen. So to the screen we are printing a text called hello world. Okay, so this is your output statement. Okay, so the first task, it is your output statement. Now, how to compile this file? The first thing to learn is to compile this programming language, correct? So to compile it, we're going to call this command called gcc space the file name. Okay, hello.c. When I compile it, if there is any error in the code, the error will be displayed here. If there are no errors, it will directly go on to the next command line. You can see it has directly jumped onto the next command line. Okay. Now to understand what this compilation has done to my program, when you open up the folder where you have stored the C programming file, you can very well see an application by the name A, which is basically an executable file. Okay, I'm right clicking it. I'll check on the properties. You can very well see the type is an application, which is .exe file. Okay, which basically stores a.exe. When I run that file, which prints the hello world message, which is storing the output of the exact file which we compiled right now. Okay, so A is the default name that the GCC compiler uses. If there is any customized name you wanted to use, you can very well have it. Yeah, I'm removing that file with a command called rm-r hello.ea.exe. I'm removing that file. When you go back to the folder here, you can very well see only the file hello.c file is only present. Now to have a custom name, I'm going to compile with a command called gcc hello.c -o. So this is the part where I can have a customized name. I can give a desired name of my choice. I'm going to have a name called hello itself, same as the file name. Okay, and I compile it now. Now when you get back to the folder, you can see the executable file has been created now, but this time is with the name of hello. Okay, I hope this is clear. Now to run the file, it is again hello.exe. I'm sorry. When you run it, you can always see this message called hello world. By this, you can very well see the compiler is installed and ready. The editor is also installed and ready. Now let's start learning the language.